Constitution, which of course is the very important oath that we take as elected officials, and thankful for the freedoms that we have enshrined in that Constitution. I'm also thankful that my opponent is here tonight. We have to be grateful that we have opponents, because I've had an opponent every time that I've run for office, and having an opponent, it makes you a better candidate. It forces us to get out and talk to the people and hear your concerns. And that's really what I want to do tonight. I actually was hoping for a little more dialogue than maybe the formal structure of what's happening. And so we might switch it up a little bit. I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. I'm not going to bore you with all the professional details. My resume, you can go on my website and read about that. I'd like to delve into the number one issue that I'm hearing. I've been out and I've spoken to hundreds of people over the last 7 months, and I'd like to talk more deeply about the one issue that I'm hearing the most about. And then I think what I'd like to do is, as I'm talking about that issue, if you think of questions, write them down on the cards. And Karina, maybe we can ask questions about that one issue first. And then what I'd like to do is see what you want to talk about next. Because if you look at my website, you can see we got a lot of things to talk about in this county. All right, so the most important thing you need to know about me is that my family is the most important thing to me. My husband Jim is here tonight. He's like, remember this picture? This was not from that long ago. Our family is very adventurous. We love the outdoors. That's my son Andrew, his fiance Katie, my daughter Ashley, and my son Matthew. We are a very adventurous family. We love the outdoors. So I've lived here for 34 years. I moved to Punta Gorda for love. My husband, who grew up on Siesta Key, one day he said to me, what would you think about moving to Florida, before we were engaged? And my answer was, not much without a ring. So I said, I want a ring, I want a dog, and I want a house. I got all those things, and he promised me that we would have sunshine and palm trees and beaches. And I got all those things. I also got Category 4 hurricanes. He forgot to tell me about those. I don't trust him so much with the weather forecast anymore. So, my first experience, this is August, one picture you can see, August 14, August 15, 2004. This was after Hurricane Charlie. How many of you were here for Hurricane Charlie? Yeah. So, he told me not to worry. He said the worst that'll happen is you'll get a new pool cage. That was my pool cage. It was a very traumatic experience. My husband put a broom through the door. He came back, we went to the neighbor's house, and he came back, he says, the good news is, he says, the doors are still good. Meanwhile, all the glass was broken. So we have been through a time in this county. We had Hurricane Charlie, we've had Ian, we've had Irma, we had Helene, we had Milton. The thing I'm hearing most when I'm out there talking to people is they're frustrated. You're frustrated by your rising insurance premiums. You're frustrated with trying to get your hurricane repairs done. And on top of that, you're frustrated that your property taxes continue to go up. And I hear people saying to me, especially the retired people who've worked so hard to live here in paradise, is they feel like they're being squeezed. They wonder if they can continue to live here with the pressure of all of those things. And what I want to tell you tonight is, you're not imagining it. You are being squeezed. The issue that I'm hearing number one concern about is your property taxes. So we're going to spend some time talking about it. It is a little bit of a boring subject, but it's not boring to those of you who've received your property tax bills. I've gotten mine online today. How many have looked at their property tax bills yet for this year? A few. Okay. Some of you are waiting to get it in the mail. Some of us have looked at it online. So, the most important number on your property tax bill is your millage rate. And this gives you a history of the millage rate going back to 2011. So you can see in 2011, the commissioners voted to raise your millage. In 2013, they voted again to raise the millage. Then for 8 years, it stayed flat. In 2020, they voted to lower it. In 2022, they voted to lower it again. In 2024, they voted to lower it again. Sorry, I said 2020, I shouldn't have said that. 22 and 24 is when they voted to lower it. They just recently voted to lower it again. Some people might find it interesting that the timing of lowering the millage is also with the timing of elections. All right? Now, I'm going to tell you something that I think all of you already know. millage rate the same is not the same as keeping your taxes the same. Even lowering the millage rate is not necessarily lowering your taxes, all right? The reason for that is we have had exponential growth in this county in property values and in the number of people moving here. I mean, in the last 3 years, we had 11,000 people move here, and property values have soared. And as those property values have gone up, the county is collecting more money in ad valorem taxes. This is a picture that shows the net amended budget. So the brown line here is the budget not including reserves, $1.5 billion. Even with the new budget that they just voted, it's going up over 13%. So the net budget is going up 13% in 1 year, even though they lowered the millage. The year prior to that, it went up almost 21%. And it is my belief that government should not be growing faster than your incomes are growing, right? The incomes of people living in this county are not going up 13%, they're not going up 20%, and people just can't do it anymore. So, some commissioners might say, well, our population has grown, right? We have 11,000 more people, we need more services. But the thing is, your per capita taxes, so per person, have gone up exponentially. In the last 5 years, the per capita taxes, per person, what you're paying, not just property taxes, sales taxes, gas taxes, and by the way, I want to clarify, this is just the county budget. This does not include the school board budget, that's a whole other presentation we could do. But in the last 5 years, your per capita taxes have gone up 32%. So 6% each year. Nobody's income here, I don't think, maybe some people, but on average, people's incomes are not growing by 6% each year. In fact, Florida Tax Watch in 2023 listed us as 9 in per capita taxes. Out of 67 counties, we were the 9th highest in per capita taxes. This is in a county where the majority of people who live here are retired and are on fixed incomes. It's not sustainable.
What's the number one there?
Number 1 is Martin County.
Oh, that's where it is.
Martin, Walton, Monroe, Collier, Nassau, Franklin, Gulf, and then Charlotte. So we are even above Miami-Dade, which until recently was a blue county. They're number 10.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I just moved from Martin County over here because the housing actually is cheaper.
Okay. I believe that.
I don't know, but.
So why has the budget been growing? The biggest thing in your budget, and I know this from experience from my school board job, the biggest thing in anybody's operating budget is people. People cost money. And in the last, if you look here at 2022, we had 1,374 budgeted positions. And by the way, these numbers do not include your public safety. So this is not the fire and the sheriffs. This is just county employees, 1,374. In 2025, 1,648. So the number of full-time employees increased 274 people in 3 years. That is 1 new employee for every 41 people who moved here. And this shows, you can see the growth in the number of employees per the 1,000 in population. So, you know, I was going over this with my husband in the car on the way here. And he said, well, Kim, he said, what are you gonna do about it? I can't fix your insurance premiums. There's things county commissioners can do, but I really can't. The one thing that the commissioners are responsible for is the budget and setting the number of budgeted positions. My promise to you is I'm always gonna tell you the truth and I'm not gonna sugarcoat things. The bottom line is, if the governor and the legislature, which they already have proposals in the House to put some fiscal restraint on counties. And by the way, if you've been watching our governor and you've been watching the CFO, Blazing Golia, it's not just Charlotte County. This is happening across the state. This is why they're going into these counties and doing Doge. And you listen to Blazing Golia and he says, listen, this is not a blue issue, this is not a red issue. This is every local government. I am here to tell you as someone who is an elected official, if government can spend money, it will. So the state is talking about putting some restraints on the ability of local governments to spend that money. And if and when they do that, and I think something will come out of the legislation this year, I think it will be on the ballot in 2026. And when that happens, Charlotte County will have no choice but to show some fiscal restraint, to tighten their budget. And what they're gonna have to do is they're gonna have to have a hiring freeze. And what's important for you to know is as a school board member, we are fiscally constrained. I can't just set whatever millage I want. The Tallahassee, they tell us, they say this is how much money you get per student. We multiply that out by the number of students, and then we figure out what the millage is. So in my time as a school board member, we have lowered the operating millage every single year I've been in office. When I was elected in 2016, one of the first decisions that I made, that was in November of 2016. In 2017, we reduced the number of positions by 131 people. This current year, our budget revenue went up less than 1%. So compared to the county that went up 13, ours went up less than 1%. Expenses are more than 1%, so we are in a hiring freeze right now. What's important for you to know is that I've made those hard decisions in the past. I'm not afraid to make them in the future, and I'm gonna tell you the truth about them. So, what questions, that was a lot for everybody to take in. Did people write questions down about the budget? Would you allow them to raise their hand to ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
I like your graphs.
Well, I credit to the county. And by the way, one promise that I made, that I have made to everyone, including my opponent, is I said when I am out on the campaign trail, everything that I say will be factual, credible, and relevant. So everything you see here is fact that can be backed up by, publicly available information. So thank you, Jan.
So I have a question. So a lot of the people in the county that are skilled and have been here for years and know how to do everything are retiring. I'm seeing it. City of Punta Gorda, Charlotte County. You got these new people coming in and they have no idea what they're doing. So I'm wondering, is that why they're hiring more? Because they're seeing, they expect so many people to retire and they have to train all these new people?
You think that they're kind of like front loading it?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I do know that, we have the same issue in the school district where we do have experienced people who are retiring, and that, every year we have a big meeting where we recognize everybody who's retired that year, and it's a huge loss of experience and knowledge. That is true, and that is a concern. Scott?
Yeah, all I can do is offer one anecdotal situation where the county is totally out of control. Let's go to the beach park down in Port Charlotte. They want to build this Sunseeker style magnificent mega facility. Started out as $10 million, jumped to $25 million with no approval, 150% increase in cost. Absolutely stupid, with no justification. And the cost per square foot to build Sunseeker was $623 a square foot. The cost to build this magnificent Taj Mahal down on beach, $1,254 per square foot, which is twice as much as a luxury condominium in Fort Myers and anywhere else. So when we let the county get away with that kind of crazy spending, it is not a good situation.
And the question is, do I agree with you? And the answer is yes.
Well, good, and you should, and the whole community should, because it's nuts.
And that's a whole other topic, would be sales tax. David, you had a question?
Yeah, I was gonna ask, because you were talking about staffing cuts, or does the school district actually laying people off?
We have a hiring freeze, so that means we're not hiring anybody right now.
Gotcha.
And that, for governments, I'm not saying it's the best way to do it, but it's the easy way for government to do it, is to enact a hiring freeze.
Did anybody write any questions down?
So when you said you were gonna open the beach complex within 2 weeks, how would you propose to do that?
When did I say I would open the beach complex?
You said
in
that
2
to many
weeks?
people.
No. Scott,
Yes, you
did I
did.
say that
Yes,
to
you
anybody
did.
in your
Not
group?
to me, but my complaint is, we still don't even know when the beach complex will ever be open because they won't even tell us. No.
So I'm gonna
You said
recap
you
for
would have it open in
Liz,
2
you're
weeks.
interrupting me.
No, you said you would have it open in 2 weeks.
No, I did not.
Yes, you did.
Here's-
I have witnesses.
Okay, so here's what I'm gonna
So
tell you what I did
here's-
say. Can I
here's-
say what I did say?
Absolutely. Go
Okay.
ahead.
And then we'll
Say
get
what
to
you
written
want to-
questions, so I can see.
Well, that's why I wanted
Yeah,
to do it
I
at this way, because that way you avoid an argument.
Yes, so I'm going to repeat what I did say about the beach complex. I met with the individuals out there, and they wanted to know my experience. And what I told them is my only experience with hurricanes and rebuilding after a hurricane is Hurricane Ian. We had 22 schools that were damaged. 22 that needed new roofs or needed their roofs replaced. They needed hundreds of thousands of square feet of ceiling tile or floor tile, dozens of HVAC units. And And 2 weeks into it, I got a phone call from a state senator, and he said, Kim, the governor wants to know why your schools are not open. And I sent the governor's office all of our mission reports that said, here's what we need. And I went to my superintendent, and I'm gonna tell you, in this room, it's the most tense conversation that superintendent and I ever had, and those schools got open 1 week later. So I didn't say, I don't know can't tell you what would happen with the beach complex. All I can tell you is my experience as being a school board member and how I operate. All right, so now,
Let's try to
do you wanna, well, let me see one more thing, because
Yeah,
I don't know
go
what
ahead.
all those questions are. So what I thought, actually, do you wanna spend the whole rest of the time on questions, or do you guys wanna address another topic? Because
Do
really,
you have more slides?
I could be here all night, Karita. So
Well,
here's.
keep on going then.
Well,
Absolutely.
here's what I wanted to ask, because the most important thing to me, it's not really gonna be fun for you. It's not gonna be fun for you to like watch me argue with my opponent's girlfriend, right? Is that fun for anybody? It's not fun for me. It's not gonna be fun for you to have me drone on up here. I think what's more fun and more interesting is for you to tell me what your concerns are and what you wanna hear about. So tell me, besides property taxes, what's your biggest concern?
So we had questions emailed, and they have been printed out and put in the envelope, so we are gonna go through them, but go ahead first.
You said I had 30 minutes to talk though, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so
if
tell
you
me,
wanna
what's your biggest
continue.
concern?
Over development that's not, let's say, monitored or any sort of like feasibility studies to see what's warranting this, what's behind it, to substantiate it, as well as the budgets that are, the money that's going into them.
So uncontrolled growth,
Uncontrolled growth, yes, uncontrolled growth.
I hear that a lot. Let me answer this question and then you can write it down on a card, David. All right.
But mostly residential.
Yes.
Because if it's, growth with where retail, whatever, so it's balanced, that's different, but it's heavily residential.
So we are experiencing tremendous growth. We've had 11,000 people move here in just the last 2 or 3 years. And again, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it for you. I cannot stop people from moving here. We all love it here, right? I mean, I've lived here for 34 years. We have sunshine, we have no state income tax, we have our freedom here. We do have great schools that people move here for. I cannot stop the people from moving here. What I will tell you, some good news, is that in Charlotte County, 46% of the county is currently preserved right now and can never be built on. Sometimes people I know, I hear a lot, I read next door too, and they say they're gonna pave over this entire county. Well, they can't. The good news is we've got 46% of it preserved. But there are big developments that are coming that have been approved by previous commissioners. There was the Burnt Store Corridor Coalition, so that whole, whatever's happening out there on Burnt Store, and I think it's projected something like 6,000 homes coming.
Yeah.
That was approved back in 2005, I believe it was, in 2005. Not really a lot you can do about that, because that was put into that plan, and those developers bought that property saying, you gave us this plan and said we could build these homes. Highway 17, this is the picture I have up here. This is the Pulte development, which is getting a lot of talk lately. Is everybody familiar with what Pulte is proposing on Highway 17? Okay, so that is part of something called the Rural Settlement Overlay District, which was approved in 2010, where the commissioner said, we're gonna take that area, which is all cows and horses, and we're gonna designate some of it for homes. And the density that they approved for all this acreage here was 6,000 homes. So the people who own that land, they can come in and build 6,000 homes right now without even going in front of the commission. What the proposal is, what they're proposing is 8,000 homes. They would like to build 8,000 homes, and Pulte basically has an agreement with all the owners of that property there. And what they're saying is, if you let us build 8,000 homes, we're gonna put in an Audubon certified golf course. That's nice. They're gonna give the school district 60 plus or minus acres for a school. They're gonna put in some commercial up here. And I think this is on their website. I think the plan they'll actually be presenting on December 9 might be a little bit different. They've agreed to put in 300 affordable housing units. So those are all good things, right? So here's, I think, the dilemma that the commissioners have. They can say, okay, fine, we'll just leave it the way it is, and you can come in and put your 6,000 homes, and then we're not gonna get all these other nice things. They could put in a yucky golf course that has pesticides, right? And not have a school for the kids. Or they can negotiate, and they can say, okay, maybe we're not gonna do 8,000, maybe we'll let you do 7,000 if you do these other things. And I think, if you're asking me my framework for making those decisions as a commissioner, I think that's where it comes in, is you have to be willing to recognize what the reality is, right? The reality is that they can build those 6,000. We don't have to like it. Again, I'm telling you the truth. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. It's not, I wouldn't like it. I wouldn't like it if I was Linda and Phil, who live out there. I bet you don't. But what the commissioners can do is they can say, okay, we recognize this is a reality, but what can we get out of it for our citizens to make it better? For myself, one of the things that I think is important is preserving as much land as we can. So they can say, okay, we're gonna let you build, maybe we're gonna let you build 7,000, but we want more of the land preserved. I know one of the things that's important to the individuals out there is Live Oak Boulevard, which is actually, I think, south of here, which is now like a dirt road where people love to drive out there and see the birds. Everybody knows David Sussman, who takes like the amazing photos, and he takes a lot of them out there. The county commissioners can say, okay, we're gonna let you do it, but you have to preserve that Live Oak Road and make it a multi-use path that people can ride their bikes and walk. Did I answer the question? Who else has a question about growth? Phil?
Let me ask you this, do you plan on putting any new roads in? All we're saying is, here's a table, these pencils right here are the roads we have. These are all the people that's coming down from up north. The people down here already, we're having trouble with the roads, they're not being taken care of that well. It's bumper to bumper, and we're gonna have all these people coming down, but they come, because people like Florida, they're not making the hard stuff, the roads improved, or more roads. Anybody here probably knows where they drive every day, and they see a lot of traffic. It's going to get worse and worse and worse.
I'm glad you asked about that, because that brings up another thing with the growth. The other thing that the county commissioners, I believe, should be doing is, I don't think it's fair for the people like us who already live here to be having to pay for whatever increased road capacity we're gonna need on Highway 17 to service all of these homes. And so our impact fees are lower than the surrounding counties. They need to be raised. They need to be competitive with the other counties. The county can only charge what's known as the proportionate amount, right? We can't, there's a lot of state statute that regulates what you can do with impact fees. They're doing a study now. I'm gonna be very interested to see what happens with that study. I suspect that the results of that study will be coming out sometime election time, next November, if I had to guess, next August, next November. And we'll see who gets to vote on what those impact fees are. My feeling about it is that the developers, they need to pay their fair share. If they're bringing all of these people here, they need to pay their fair share through impact fees to cover the roads and the water. The water is a whole other subject here. I'm gonna tell you about the water just because I think this development is a good example of what's happening with growth, and especially because the hearing is on December 9, so everybody can be tuned into it. So Pulte has some choices with the water. I think what the commissioners would like is for Pulte to pay impact fees on all of those homes, and the impact fees are gonna go to increase capacity at the Westport plant, which is on the other side of the river. And then those impact fees are gonna go to pay to run sewer lines under the river. And I've heard that it's gonna be around $58 million. Wow. So that's option one. And there's a lot of people who don't like that. They live on the river, they live on Hunter Creek. It makes them nervous to think about sewer lines going underneath their river. Pulte could just build their own water treatment plant. You know, if the people are unhappy enough, they could say, well, we'll just build our own. And then the county commissioners won't get the fees to do even what needs to be done now on that Westport plant. Finally, they could just continue with septic tanks. And that's another topic about water quality. Yeah, I see some people understand what septic tanks do to our water. That answer, Phil, about the roads, I think you're right, that the people people moving in need to pay for the road capacity. David?
What I was gonna ask was, what is your position like, because you've lived in the community a long time, what is your position on like preserving the history of our community? Like, for example, there's some other communities where you see they've taken over and they've demolished entire neighborhoods to build data centers and so forth. What would you do to prevent that from happening here?
Are you asking me that question because of our disagreement about Port Charlotte Middle School?
Actually, it's a broad question.
Okay.
In Englewood, Port Charlotte.
Okay. So first, some history. David and I had a disagreement several years ago about Port Charlotte Middle School. David feels very strongly that that is a historically significant building. And again, when I talked about that conversation with the governor's office and what to do, that was a building that every single HVAC unit on the roof had fallen onto the ground, ripped holes. And my belief was that it did not make sense to pour money into a middle school where every time we have a hurricane, the HVAC units are gonna blow off. So we had a disagreement on that. But my overarching thing, what I would say about preserving history is that the reason I moved to the city of Punta Gorda, what attracted me there, we actually came for the first time to Punta Gorda 6 months before we decided to move for a friend's wedding. They got married their reception was at the hotel that has now been torn down. And I remember we stayed at that hotel and we walked around downtown Punta Gorda, and I just loved all the charming Victorian homes. That's what made me fall in love with the city. When you're talking about preserving history, I think what's important is that you have architects, like architectural standards, that define what is historically significant. Politicians or websites that don't have architects on them should not be the ones to make those decisions. I do think it's important to preserve our way of life. You know, for example, like Charlotte High School, one of the things that Linda and Phil are really gonna remember this. One of the things that I remember most about Hurricane Charlie, for those of you who were here, the entire high school demolished. The only thing left standing was the facade, the historic facade, yellow brick. That school is turning 100 years old this year, by the way. And people in our community are they're emotionally connected to that high school. It was the first voluntarily desegregated high school in the entire state of Florida. So we had a person come in, Jaime Correa, an urban planner, and he explained to us how important it was to preserve things like the facade of that high school. And I remember it was very controversial that they were gonna spend $1 million to brace that facade. And in the end, it cost a lot more than $1 million, but they did it. They braced that facade. So when you drive by that school now, the facade is a historic facade and all the buildings behind it are new. And I think we're all glad we did that, right?
We gutted the whole interior.
Yeah, but so I do think it is important to preserve our history. All right, now we wanna take cards, random questions?
Yeah,
Okay.
go ahead.
All right. I think I'd like to get some from people who are here tonight. Where's that
Well,
card?
they're all
Linda,
mixed
go
up,
ahead.
so,
Okay.
yeah. Do you want me to read it, or you wanna read it out yourself?
I can read.
It's
I did go to school, I can read.
No, it's just.
All right.
If you want me to do it, I can do it too.
Okay. What will you do to reduce the budget that is allocated to traffic units and traffic court judges, which have become a multi-million, if not billion-dollar internal revenue income stream for the big government, which is hurting people unreasonably or misdemeanors? It's not about safety, it's about money and generating revenue for the government. It should be self-funded. Will you work to cut the budget for traffic cops? Okay, so I'm a little confused if this is, because it talks about big government, are we talking about our local sheriff's office, or are we talking about the federal government?
This was a question I got from, a gentleman that had been pulled over. Locally, yeah.
And he's mad he got pulled
I
over.
literally met him, and, you know, we were talking about what we were doing with bringing in several candidates, and he said, you know, this would be a question that you would want to
Okay.
answer, because he was PO'd about going to court.
So let's keep it local. So I think a lot of what I'm gonna do with these questions, I hope one of my goals is by the end of tonight, you're gonna understand my framework for making decisions, that when I'm sitting up on that dais, you're not gonna be surprised, because you will have heard from me today, this is how she makes decisions. So number one, the most important thing for elected officials is to keep our citizens safe, right? So I am gonna be enforcing the law. I do support our law enforcement, I support the sheriff's office. And second thing is, are we following the law? Am I upholding the Constitution and the laws therein? And that means that, yes, I am sorry that you got pulled over, that I am going to fully support our sheriff's office, and do not speed, especially in the school zone. And I'm sorry if you got a ticket.
It was a speeding ticket.
I'm sorry you got a ticket, but, you know, you speeded at Christ, so.
I got a speeding
Not gonna like my answer. Like I told you, I tell the truth, I don't sugarcoat it. I feel like these are like Chinese fortune cookies here. If the position you're running for came with no salary benefits and no pension, would you still want the job? Why or why not? Okay, that is a good question. So let me tell you, my school board, a lot of people are surprised to know that school board members in the state of Florida get paid. And the reason that both school board members and county commissioners get paid is because those positions are enshrined in the Florida Constitution, and it lays out that state legislators define what our salary is. Currently, county commissioners are making over $94,000 a year. School board members make about half, around $48,000. I've heard our current commissioner say that that the county commission salary is a part-time salary, that he works full-time. I guess that means for my salary, I should only work quarter-time. Those of you who know me know I do this job because I love it. I really do. You know that expression about if you love your job and what you're doing, you'll never work a day in your life? That's how I feel. I am very fortunate that my husband's position pays the bills. We also have had some successful businesses that I have some passive income. This salary is not what pays my bills. I don't advertise this wisely, but I set my salary currently aside, and I would do it in the future. It gets set aside in a separate account, and my net salary goes to three things. First, it goes to nonprofits that support children in our community. Second, it goes to Republican candidates that influence education policy. And third, when I go out and do all of the things, like the chamber events and things like that, I don't charge the taxpayer for that. That comes from my salary. So I would do the same in this new position. Okay. As the cost of living has been exploding over the last 5 to 10 years, what will you do to reduce the cost of utilities? Charlotte County is among the most expensive counties to live in terms of utility costs. So, as those of you who've lived here a long time know, we used to have general development, used to be our utilities, and Charlotte County took it over. Now it's called Charlotte County Utilities, and the costs are going up quite a bit, particularly for these water treatment plants. Cheyenne and I had the pleasure of touring the Burnt Store water treatment plant and hearing about the plans and what they need to do to expand that capacity for those 6,000 homes that are coming. And what I would say is, again, it's the same thing with the roads. It's not fair for us to have to pay for that future growth. One thing I learned about the county, and I haven't really delved into this, you wonder why I started with numbers. Numbers, that's my place where I feel comfortable. I have a master's degree with a concentration in finance. I'm currently working on my certificate in local government, and part of that, I've taken a public budgeting course. I did a financial statement analysis for the last 3 years on Charlotte County's financial statement, on their financial report. And what I learned is that Charlotte County's debt ratio is very low. Their debt to asset ratio this year, it went down from 0.26 to 0.22. The benchmark is 0.5, all right? So what they're doing a pay as you go. That's a very fiscally conservative approach. I understand why they're doing it, but what it means when you're paying as you go, that means all of us sitting right here, whatever's gonna happen there at Burnt Store, we're all gonna start paying for it right now. And is that fair for us right now to be paying for that advanced wastewater treatment that's gonna benefit the 6,000 homes that are coming over the next 5 years? So I do think that we need to increase the, or take on a bond issue to help pay for the water capacity. I also think, again, the developers need to pay their fair share, and that means they need to pay increased connection fees to connect all of those homes to water. So I believe that that will keep that cost for the utilities. I can't tell you that it's gonna decrease it, right? But that's gonna help with the cost on the utilities.
Just a curiosity, what kind of impact fees do you feel that the developers should pay, just out of curiosity?
Well, I don't think I can give you a number, but what I would say is they're doing a study, and I'm interested, and they have to, they're required to do a study. I think it should, first of all, they can't go up more than 25%. And they have to be proportionate to what the actual impact the developer is having on the community. So when that study comes out,
share it, yeah,
Yeah.
let's hear about it.
It'll be a part of a public meeting,
Yeah,
and,
sure.
you know, hopefully I'll have the opportunity to vote on it in November 26th. All right, somebody just wrote this on. Can you explain the situation with Blaze evaluating Charlotte County to set every county for to be evaluated? What does that mean for Charlotte County? By Blaze, I assume you mean Blaze and Golia? Whoever wrote this? Okay. What's that? Somebody wrote Blaze, but they wrote BLAZE. I think they're referring to Blaze and Golia. Blaze and Golia is our chief financial officer. He has created a new agency called the Florida Agency for Fiscal Oversight, otherwise known as the FAFO. I happen to love Blaze and Golia. He has a Twitter account that's called @GovGoneWild, like our government has gone wild. And he is the one who is going across the state and investigating their budgets. Some of you might have read in the newspaper, he just went after Miami-Dade. I think he said he found $300 million of
I'm not
wasted money.
surprised, having lived there.
But yeah, Miami-Dade is huge. So, he said he's gonna evaluate every county. I hope he does evaluate Charlotte County, and if I was a commissioner, I would welcome it. I mean, I'm here to tell you, everybody, right, even our household budgets have waste, right? There's always something we can cut out. I will tell you, as a school board member, one of the first things that I called for, and we did do an efficiency and effectiveness study. We brought in an outside company to come in and tell us where we could cut. And that was before we put forward the referendum. And you know what it came back? It came back and basically said that we, the school district, had cut off our nose to spite our face. We had gotten so lean that we had become inefficient. And that's when we did the referendum. So yes, I do think that Blaze and Golia should come to Charlotte County. I don't wish it on my commissioners, because it won't be fun, because he will be digging into every expense, but I think the taxpayers deserve to know.
It'll be like Doge coming in, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yes. Yeah.
Hey, just out of curiosity, I have no idea who put all the questions in the hat. They're obviously not here tonight, and I don't know if other people have questions, but why did they get all the priority and we made the effort to come down here and sit?
I don't have any control over who shows up. The announcement goes out to a lot of people, and I said to everybody, if you're unable to make it or don't wanna stand up and ask questions, cause some people are intimidated.
They're not here, they don't even know what the answers are.
Okay, but this is just the format that we decided to do for everybody, so it's gonna be the same format for John Fleming when he speaks on December 1st.
So all those are from people in the room?
So some of the,
or all
what?
Some of them are from.
Actually,
Some
I'm
of
talking
them
to the lady
from
in front, please. I'm talking to
So
this lady.
some of them, so some of them, are people that I've encountered as I'm out and about with my work. And they wrote it down and I put it in. Some of them have been emailed to me as we.
Okay, I'm not asking you where they came from, it just seems that these people made an effort
But I don't
to come
have
out
any control
tonight
over that,
and-
but I think.
Here's what I'd like to ask.
I think
As
some of
speaker,
the,
can I ask something?
yeah,
I think Scott makes a fair point, and really what my hope, I didn't realize this was gonna be the format, that I was gonna get a hat full of questions today, that was kind of a surprise to me. And really what my hope, the reason that I accepted your invitation is because I wanted to have a dialogue with the people who live in this county and find out what's important to you, who did take the time to come out. So what I'd like to ask is if there are questions that you in the room have, please raise your hand and ask them.
absolutely.
Or if there's something specific on,
But I think a lot of the questions that are being asked here so far that we've pulled out would be great questions for anybody that's running for this type of position.
Well, I mean,
And
yes and
not
no, but I
just-
don't really care about the guy speeding ticket, he obviously was pissed off, so I don't think that's an appropriate
Well,
question.
It still was presented to me,
I get
and
it.
so let's move forward.
okay, let's think about these topics here. Law enforcement, affordable housing or attainable housing, hurricane resiliency, healthcare, quality healthcare, creating jobs. We talked about infrastructure, water, term limits. Does anybody wanna talk about term limits?
Cut him off. I mean, I don't know, how many, right now it's unlimited, right?
Yes. So let's talk about term limits, because that is an important issue to me, and now that I'm running in this office, I've seen why it is so important, because I'm gonna tell you, the system is rigged to keep incumbents in. It is extraordinarily difficult to run against an incumbent, and there are a lot of reasons for that, and basically the bottom line is, it goes down to money. Our surrounding counties have term limits. Sarasota County has term limits, Lee County has term limits, Collier County has term limits. We do not have term limits. We are a charter county. What it would take to enact those term limits is that the county commissioners would have to vote to put it on the ballot in 2026, or actually the next time, I'm sorry, would be 2028. It would go on the ballot and let the voters decide if they want term limits. That's how it should be. Every county, the voters should have the opportunity to decide if they want term limits. I understand that in some of these very, very small rural counties, say like Sewanee County, they maybe don't want term limits because it's hard to find 5 professional commissioners to do the job. I do believe in this county, if people had the choice, they would choose term limits. I think one of the most dangerous things for elected officials is to believe that they are irreplaceable. This is not supposed to be a lifetime appointment. This is not the Supreme Court. It should be a public service job, and I think the term limits, I think they should be 8 or 12 years. Got that out of the way. Sean.
Just to give some input, we just did a mock election and we all voted about term limits at FSW for my political science class, and it was almost unanimous that every student that voted wanted term limits.
I think the majority of people want term limits, so it really makes you question, why do we not have them? And we do have them for school board members, by the way. They're currently 8 years. Interestingly enough, there is a bill in the House right now that would make school board term limits 12 years, so it would increase our term limits to 12 and give county commissioners a 12-year term limit. David?
I have a question about that. If they're currently 8 years, this is your 3rd term on the school board though.
So the way they did it when they enacted that in law was that the years only counted after, whenever the law was enacted, I can't remember what year that was, that the years of service only counted on that date. And they had to do that, I think, for constitutional, legal reasons. So, all right, any other topics on here we want to delve into?
Would you speak about affordable housing for working families?
Yes. Okay, so I have this slide here. So I'm gonna call Cheyenne out because she's the youngest one in the room. I hope she doesn't mind. This is a retirement community. Half the people who live here are over the age of 60. But all of us, and I'm gonna be turning 60 this year, I'm getting closer to retirement age, but we all came here for a certain quality of life, right? You wanna have good health care, you want somebody to fix your cars, we want people to fix our roofs when the hurricanes come. That takes working people, all right? You cannot sustain a community that is, we are the 2nd oldest county in the entire United States. The only county older than us is the Villages, all right? Which you have to be 55 to live in. Even the Villages, when they built the Villages, you know what the first thing they built was? Charter schools. Because they recognized if we don't have working families, who's gonna take care, who's gonna work in the assisted living places? So that leads into this question, the conversation about attainable housing. And I prefer to call it attainable, not affordable. When people hear affordable, they think Section 8 housing for people who are not working. No. We need housing for the people who are doing the jobs that give us our quality of life. The people who work in this restaurant, the teachers in our schools, the nurses. If we don't have that, I mean, how many of you have had trouble getting an appointment with a doctor in the last year, right? If we don't have places for our healthcare workers to live, and teachers, and the people who work in our schools, this community is not going to survive. It's just not sustainable. So how do we create that? I put up this slide here because this is what is known as the Bachman Tract. Is anybody familiar with the Bachman Tract on Veterans Boulevard?
Yeah.
It has sat vacant, a huge, wonderful parcel of land that is ideally situated to do some attainable housing. And in fact, several years ago, the county did have a contract. They put it out to bid and they had a contract with a company, I think they were called Palladium, and they dropped out of it. They gave them like a big thing that they were gonna build of all of the multifamily attainable housing, and the developer backed out of it. So now we're back to the drawing board, and we have a partnership between the school board and the county, a task force, if you will, that is looking at what we can do with this property. And a part of the conversation is going to be, do we work with a developer to put in attainable housing?
Who sets the rents? Does the county commissioner set the rents based on income, or does the developer who builds it, he's gonna make a profit too,
Yep.
correct? So, I mean,
So that's an
How does
interesting
that work?
thing that I have given to our superintendent for the task force to consider. Because there's two ways it can be done. In state statute, if the school board, if we donate our land to a developer, we can specify that those units go to critical need personnel. So teachers, paraprofessionals, bus drivers, food service workers, first responders, all right? We can limit it to job titles. If the county commission does it, if they do it with a developer, then it's AMI, average median income. And so then it's, typically 80% of what the median income in this county is, and you can't restrict who lives there, it can be anybody.
Minus section 8, am I understanding that correctly?
It's not section 8, right, section 8 is a whole other, that's a whole other, and we are not talking about section
I
8
think
housing
the
here.
median income is 65,000 or so in the county right now,
I think you're right,
more or less, so 85% of that,
80, yeah.
or 80% of that, yeah, but not section 8.
So, and there are developers that this is what they specialize in. It is a very complicated thing to get done. They do get tax incentives to do it. And that was my conversation with the superintendent. And actually, we had some of the county staff came to our board meeting and spoke to us.
when you're talking about this area here, is that the one of going up on Veterans Boulevard on the right-hand side where the dentist office is? You make a right there, am I wrong? Like,
It's Veterans, and I believe the cross street, I believe.
yeah,
is
okay, I
Hillsborough.
see Veterans, so it's over, it's
Yeah,
out that way, okay. That's the one that's been in the paper.
yes, it has,
Okay.
it had been previously, yeah.
Because it seems like, I mean, from what I've read, and I'm not the brightest bulb, but Charlotte County wants to attract young working class people here instead of them having to go someplace else so they can make more money, but they can't live here. So now they're doing that airport project with the fabrication, and they're getting a big response for that. The airport authority is getting involved. There's gonna be some good paying jobs coming out of that. So,
Yeah, let's talk about that.
I mean, you can't rent a decent apartment here now for under $2,000 a month. It's impossible.
Yep, so it's both, right? We need to have attainable housing. We also need to diversify our economy and bring higher paying jobs here. So that was another.
I didn't mean to
topic I
steal your thunder.
No, I love to talk about this, because you brought up what we're doing with the aviation out in the airport. One of the things, I think one of the greatest accomplishments we've had as a school board member is putting that focus on those workforce development programs. We're building 2 hangars right now. We have one, in fact, when I went for the air show, I saw like the shell is done. So our aviation program is so successful that we had to build a bigger hangar classroom for the number of adult students who are taking those courses, and we do already have one company, an MRO company, that is coming. And we also have a hangar that's almost finished over at our high school for our high school students. We received a state appropriation for an advanced manufacturing training facility that is also gonna be located at the ECAP in the airport, and that's gonna be training adults on all the equipment that is needed now to do that advanced manufacturing. And I just got word that a CEO of a company is coming to tour our high school advanced manufacturing program to get an idea of what we're doing, because he's considering bringing his company here. So it's a 2-pronged approach, right? We need to have jobs that people can make enough without a huge amount of student debt, right? That they can afford to live here, and we need to have houses, multifamily houses, like what they're doing. If the commissioners approve this plan from Pulte, that's gonna add 300 units, but that's a compromise they're making. Pulte's saying we're only gonna do the 300 affordable if you let us build 8,000, so we'll see what happens there. Yes, Cindy?
Kim, I have a character question. I've known you for almost 3 decades, and I've watched you very closely, and I've seen a lot of things that I don't like. When running for the school board, you changed your party affiliation to Republican. In January, you and your doctor husband bought a $350,000 home in Riverwood, which is in Stephen R. Deutsch's district. Yet you and your husband still own your near $2 million home in PGI, which is Dr. Chris Constance's district. You claim you're not political, yet you say you're in it, quote, in it to win it, unquote. How is this not political, and where is your homestead, Kim? Why
I'm
aren't you
trying to
running
figure out what the
against
question
Chris
is.
Constance?
How is this not political? I don't think I've ever said that well, What
So
I have,
you're in it to win it.
that is for sure.
Okay.
So
and you
what's the
changed your
exact
party
question?
affiliation when you're running for the school board. You now have a home, 2 homes, one in Stephen Deutsch's district when you should be running against Chris Constance because you've been in that PGI home for decades. So to me, as a realtor, it looks like you did a quick purchase in January to be able to run against Deutsch rather than Constance. What's that all about, Kim?
Okay, so the question is why I own 2 homes? I'm trying to get to the question. You made like a very long statement.
How are
What's the
you running
question?
against Steve Deutsch and in his district when you
Okay.
you've been in that house in PGI for decades?
Okay, so
Where's
you
your
wanna know about my
homestead?
homestead? My homestead property is in Punta Gorda. That's where I live, that's where I've lived for 33 years. I represent the school board in District 2. My husband and I are empty nesters now. We've been empty nesters for 6 years. We've been planning on downsizing ever since my daughter left for college 6 years ago. And so we bought a smaller home in Riverwood, and my full intention is that when I am elected, my primary residence will be in Riverwood, and I will be putting my Punta Gorda house up for sale.
But your
Does
primary
that-
residence,
does that answer
residence is not there at the time.
My primary residence is in Punta Gorda, and when I'm elected to the county commission, my primary residence will be in Riverwood, and I will put my Punta Gorda house up for sale. Does anybody else have a question about that, where I live? Does anybody wanna know about my party? I'll tell you the truth about the politics. I'm a very transparent person. When I first decided to become a school board member, I was president of the local education foundation. And our school district was in a terrible place. We were ranked 48 out of 67. And I was a mom with 2 kids in high school, and some friends of mine on the education commission, they said, we think you'd be a good school board member. And I said that, I said, I've never been involved in party politics. I've gotten a lot of grief because I had never attended a Republican club meeting before that. I was an NPA, okay, I was a no party affiliation. I was one of those people who I had my viewpoints, but I never got involved in local politics. When I decided to run for school board, I did become a Republican, and I will tell you, I have become, I attend all the meetings. I have my philosophy, now that I've been inside government, and I saw what went on in our schools, some of the schools across the state, I have become more conservative with time. Does that answer the question about that? I'm an open book, I got nothing to hide.
You decided to change your party
Yeah.
to get elected is what it boils down to, Kim.
It's,
And you've decided to buy a house in a district where you think you can win. That's what
Cindy,
it
you're
boils
very
down to.
confrontational.
Well, that's the
So
reality.
I'd like to
of it.
move on from that question
Yeah,
because.
let's get to
So-
Nick. Thank you,
Coming
Nick.
back to
Well,
this
I just
slide,
wanna say real quick, I know when I printed out the questions that were given to me, that was a question that came up. There are no, as you see, there are no names on these because it doesn't matter what the name of that person is. But if you pull that question out, ignore it because it's already been answered.
Okay, yeah,
as far as the promoting job creation and small business growth, we're small business owners here just down the road. It took me 6 years to be able to open my doors in Charlotte County. And I've heard numerous stories of other small businesses attempting to open their doors, and it boils down to basically the permitting office not understanding their own rules and regulations. I mean, I alone, once I finally got this building open, it took me an additional 6 months because I was told I had to get a permit that come the inspection time, the inspection's like, there's no reason for this permit. So not just small business growth, but small business, even the ability to obtain real estate to be able to open a small business really is something that's for most of us is insurmountable to be able to overcome. Like,
yeah, I hear what you're saying, and again, my framework for making decisions is local government should not be an impediment to your success as a business owner. My husband and I have run 2 different businesses. We've run into our own frustrations. Every business owner in this county has. And I think what I can promise you is that you'll have my cell phone number. My number is on these cards that are up here. And I'm gonna do everything in my power to make sure that staff is working for you and that we create a culture and a climate where we want our businesses to be successful, because you are the business owners in this community. You know, the people, I'm looking at some members of the CDBIA here. You're the people who make this community. You are the one providing the jobs, you're raising your families here. We need to make it easier for folks like you.
Let's go on with the next question.
Scott.
Oh, just real quick, first off, if you're not in it to win it, then I wouldn't be sitting here and I know you wouldn't be up front. So that's, I totally appreciate anything you can do legally be elected to the position, and the position needs to be filled properly. Big question though, communications. I never got involved in any of this stuff in Charlotte County until the hurricane. And all of a sudden, we were treated extremely poorly by the county commissioners. We were lied to, I think, but repeatedly, we went to the commissioners. Again, big issue is communications, and we said, hold a town hall meeting, tell us what's going on. You know, we sent countless emails, we got almost 0 replies. One county commissioner met with us, everybody else refused to even answer messages. Especially after hurricane, people want to know, you know, what the plan is, when you're gonna recover, when you're gonna open the beach park, things like that. Here we are, you know, years later, a year plus later, and we still don't have answers. So I guess I'm asking, or maybe just encouraging you, if you step into the position, take the hard position, hold a town hall meeting, and talk to people and tell them what's going on to the best of your ability.
Well, what I will say is, I haven't even been elected, and you were gone, but your neighbors reached out to me.
Right.
And they said, Kim, they said, we wanna talk to somebody about what's happening here in the beach complex. And so I said, well, why don't we have a town hall? And we did. We invited all of the neighbors. I think we had about 15 people come. And the way I did it, we weren't gonna have a gripe session, all right? I said, let's talk about where we are right now with the beach complex. And I went out there, I toured it, they told me their frustrations. Then I said, where do you wanna be? And then we talked about what the barriers were getting there. And then I helped them write a plan. They signed off on it. Saturday morning, I sent that to the county commissioners and the county administrator on behalf of your neighbors. Monday morning, Joe Tiseo met with county staff, and by Monday afternoon, he had answers for your neighbors. And your neighbors said, wow, Kim, we've been trying to do this for years. You sent one email. And that gets back to what I would say about that is that gets back to relationships. The most important thing about this job is my relationship with my constituents, answering the phone, listening to your concerns, but also relationships with my fellow elected officials. It will come as no surprise, I don't think, to most people in this room, that 2 of the county commissioners have publicly endorsed me. I do have a good relationship with the commissioners. I'm not here with this presentation that I'm doing to slam our county government. I think when I look around the entire state of Florida, things in Charlotte County are pretty good. All of the elected officials, most of us anyway, have a good relationship with each other. We pick up the phone, we talk, we work out problems. That's hugely important to you when things happen like a hurricane or any other kind of crisis. So I do have a good relationship with the existing commissioners. I've been endorsed by 4 state representatives, including our 2 local ones. I've been endorsed by the firefighters. Very proud of that.
But it is terrible though that you have to hold the meeting to talk about how we're gonna recover from a hurricane, and the county commissioners won't do that, and they won't answer our questions. I mean, that's just so obvious, so basic. And in fact, it's built into the county's vision statement is to be transparent and to communicate and be innovative. And I've never hardly seen any of those 3.
Well, I hope to change that. I will make that promise to you that I'm fully available to you. My phone number is on that card.
Yep.
As you know, I do answer my phone.
Thank you.
Let's go on with the questions.
All right. We'll do 15 more minutes, is that fair? 8:30? I think people would like to get home right now. We'll go to 8:30.
Yeah.
I'm making an executive decision. Anybody disagree with
No,
8:30?
I'm
No,
gonna
that's
email,
good.
whatever questions we received, I'm gonna email to you afterwards.
Okay. Can you name a recent decision or policy you supported that didn't personally benefit you or your party, but was right for the people? I think everything I do just my framework for making decisions on the school board, it has nothing to do with what's right for me or for the Republican Party. The decisions I make on the school board, I start with number 1, is it gonna keep the children in this county safe, the children in my schools safe? Number 2, am I following the law? Number 3, is it going to help my students, improve their achievement scores? So I don't make decisions that benefit me and the party. I'm here to work for my constituents and what's best for them. Okay? I guess, the more of these questions I get through, the better it's gonna be, because otherwise, I don't know, I'm gonna have to take like a week off of work to respond to all of them.
That's why I think it's better that we just get answers here.
I just don't want people to be bored, so if you think of something while I'm talking, please, feel free to raise your hand, because it's boring just to sit there and listen to someone talk. Records indicate, this is the same question, so this is the question about my house. Does anybody else have?
Oh, okay, then pick another.
Other than Cindy,
Yeah,
does
if
anybody
it's
else
the
have a
same-
question about where I
If
live?
it pertains to the same thing that if it's something you already answered, we're not gonna do it.
Yeah. Oh, this one is, wait, I think I got two. I thought I had a letter there. Okay, when running for school board, this is about the party, this same question. Same question. Do you guys wanna know how I ended up running for the District 4 seat, the journey that led me to here? Cause I am an open book and I am totally transparent.
Sure,
Like
let's
I
do that.
said, when I started as a school board member, I was not involved in politics at all. I happened to go out to lunch with, at the time was our state representative, Mike Grant. I told him I was gonna run for school board. And he said, Kim, you are going to love politics, it's a blood sport. Those of you who know Mike will not be surprised that that's what he said. I was so nervous when he said that to me, I couldn't even eat my soup, my hand was shaking so bad. I was like, I'm not looking for a blood sport. This is supposed to be a nonpartisan position for people who support public education. This is back in 2015, that shows how naive I was. Well, now when I see him, I always tell him, and those of you who know Mike know, he's almost always right. He was right. It turned out I did like politics. It is a blood sport. And what happened over the last couple of years is people saw that I had a skill for this job. I had the respect of the people in Tallahassee. I had relationship with our congressman and with Senator Scott in Washington, D.C. And they saw that I had an aptitude for getting things done. And about 2 years ago, when I ran my school board campaign, started in 2023, people started saying to me, have you ever thought about running for county commission? We think you would be good at it. And it was in the back of my mind, and I was thinking about it, and I said, let me get through 2024 first. And in January of this year, people started talking to me more about it. And they talked to me about constancy, and they talked to me about Deutsches. And the interesting thing is, if you look on my website, and you can look on the campaign donations, and you'll see who's supporting me. You'll see who is on my host committee. You'll see who's made contributions to me. And if you go back and you look at Commissioner Deutsch's previous campaign reports and fundraising events he did, you're gonna see a lot of those people previously supported him. Those people, when I met with them, they said, Kim, we respect Commissioner Deutsch. We appreciate the years of service that he's had, but we think it's time for a change, and we believe that you are the right person to make that change. And they said, if you will do it, if you will step up and do this, we will get behind you. And so the door, that opportunity was open to me, and I took it. That's how it happened. All right, this is a long one. On your campaign website, you say Charlotte County's infrastructure must keep pace with growth, yet traffic congestion continues to worsen. Let me see if I can find a question here that's different than what. How do you propose to do this without any, okay, I think I talked about this already, about planning for infrastructure, about developers paying their fair share and impact fees.
Yeah, I think we went over that.
It was a long one, so I had to read through all of it to get to.
Yeah, well, they talked to me about what was on your website, and I copied it literally so that we could reference it.
Okay, in previous speeches at clubs in the RC, you have discussed money you've got from the Florida State government for various projects in the millions of dollars. As a conservative, and fundamentally being against redistribution of wealth, how do you plan to execute your ideas for Charlotte County without raising taxes or in any way increasing spending at the expense of the resident? As you know, okay, so I understand that, right? Some people are saying, how can you be for low taxes when you go up to Tallahassee and ask them for an appropriation, say, for the advanced manufacturing, which we received $1.75 million. And this year, we're asking for $775,000 for a water management program that'll be at Lemon Bay High, and a welding program that we're gonna add on to advanced manufacturing. Two ways I would answer that. Number one, all that money is flowing up to the state. They've got that money. The legislators, they're gonna choose where that money goes. Don't you want that money to come to Charlotte County? I do. And I'm gonna tell you this, before I got on that school board, they had not asked for an appropriation in 20 years. Not since Hurricane Charlie, they had not asked for money. You know why? They had no relationships with their state representatives. They were sitting in the office crying that they had no money. And I said, well, why don't you go talk to the people who have money? They said, no, we hate him. I said, I don't care. I said, I'm gonna go talk to him. And since then, we've gotten almost $10 million for that aviation program. I asked for 1.5 for advanced manufacturing, we got 1.75. And here's what our state senator, who's now the Senate president, what he said to me. When I went in to ask for the 1.5 for the aviation facility that we did at the high school, and I said, if you give me this 1.5 million, here's how many students we're gonna train, and here's how many certificates they're going to get, and here's what their average salary is gonna be, between $65,000 and $75,000, and we're gonna return that $1.5 million to the economy in less than 3 years. You know what he did? He called over his person, he said, give me that highlighter. He took a yellow highlighter, he circled it, he gave it to his person, he said, you take that down to budget and get it done. So, yes, so I am proud of the money that we have brought back to Charlotte County. Especially when it's smart money, right? That's smart money. When you are creating jobs, that is a smart use of the taxpayers' money. I really could do this all night. I actually enjoy it. I feel like, I don't know what game show. This is like a game show.
I think it's going quite well, you know.
I seem to have all the answers. I don't really.
So
I really
far,
do
there's
not.
very good flow, I think.
I really do not. The truth is, you know, when you get in, this is good. This is a good segue into this question.
What's the question? I'm sorry.
I'm gonna ask it in just a minute. I just said it's gonna be a good segue about not having all of the answers. Because the truth is, one of the things I like about being an elected official is you never know what the next challenge is going to be. When I ran for this position, my whole platform was on student achievement. Half the kids in this county couldn't read. 1 out of 4 high school seniors wasn't graduating. That was gonna be my entire focus. Then a couple things happened. Number one, in 2018, Marjorie Stoneman Douglas happened. And we realized the kids, you couldn't count that your kids were gonna be safe in schools. And then in 2020, we had COVID. So this question is about COVID. They're saying that I supported shutting down schools during COVID restrictions, camera, audio monitoring of students, when there was so much opposition from people to do this. Okay, let's talk about COVID. None of us had ever gone through that before. That was a terrible time. Back to my framework, how I make decisions. Number one thing is, follow the law, okay? I didn't make the decision to shut down schools. We never took a vote on our school board to shut down schools. That was a direct order from the governor and from the education commissioner. Our kids were away at spring break. They called up the superintendent and they said, you will not bring those kids home, back from spring break. First, they extended spring break 2 weeks, and then they said, nope, you're not bringing kids back at all. So that was not a decision of the school board. That was a decision of the governors. And here's what I would say. I can guarantee you that, I can't say everybody, but for sure the governor, I think I can speak for him and I can speak for myself. We never should have kept kids out of school, not one single day. We never should have put a mask on kids. That is, if you wanna ask me what the one decision that I regret the most is that we ever put a mask on a child. We never should have done it. And we never should have kept those kids out of school. So, there's that.
There you go.
Are you sure you didn't just go on ChatGPT and say, put in my website and say,
No.
ask some questions?
I did not.
It's too hard. I mean, how many questions do you have there?
I think it was like 30 questions, so 10 are generic questions that we generated, that really just pertains to, what is a candidate's objective with running.
So I guess I'm wondering, where are these 30 people? I mean, I'm kind of wondering the
Like
same
I
thing,
said,
because a lot of these people in here are people I know.
Some of them are people that normally come to the meetings. I am kind of disappointed that they didn't show up today, frankly. I will tell you that straightforward. I am very disappointed that they asked the question and did not show up. Others are people that I meet I have a second job, I do Uber as well, and I talk to people. And then people have asked me in the car, because people bitch about, they do all day long, they complain about stuff going on, and I'm like, well, why don't you write down your question? I will make sure that it get into the hat and come to the meeting, and You know, that's how I meet a lot of people, so.
Okay,
yeah.
so is there questions from the general citizen?
Yeah,
Okay, I
absolutely.
appreciate that. So I actually think this last question is a good one maybe to end on.
Okay.
Okay.
And then the rest of it I just sent to you, and we post them on the website.
If you were to lose this election, how would you continue contributing to your community? So, those of you who have lived here a long time, like Linda, she's known me forever, I think. Long before I got into this business of politics, the way I started on this road is, I guess here's what I'm gonna say. You talked about thankfulness. Jim and I are extremely grateful for the way that this community has blessed us. We truly are living the American dream. We are a product of that. We went to public schools, we worked hard, we raised our kids here, we built 2 businesses, and this community has given us opportunities we never could have dreamed of. And we both feel very strongly that it's our obligation to give back to this community. I didn't go looking to become a politician. I looked to what can I do to help my community. Long before I got on the school board, I had served on 8 different nonprofit boards in a leadership position. I'm currently on the board of the YMCA. If I'm not elected, I'll tell you what, I'm in this with everything I've got, okay? I fully intend to win this election. I'm a very goal-driven person. I would not have filed my papers if I didn't think that I had the support to win this. But I also, I think Jane will appreciate this. I believe that God is by my side with this. Everything I do is by His grace. And if I win this election, it will be because it's part of His plan. And if I don't, it means it's His plan too. And I will wake up the next day at peace, knowing that He has another plan for me. And I think that's a good way to end it.
Yes, it
I
is.
think